Well, welcome. So let me show you this question again that we were looking at earlier. Just for a quick contemplation, where's an area of your life where maybe you're a little bit stuck? Alacrity is something that helps us to get going and get moving. So write down a few words. What would you say if you wanted to ask for help? What would you say? What would you ask for? Because tonight we will be celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is all about increasing the light, and we can serve. You notice, and I'm sure as you all know, we have a shamash, a candle that lights the other candles, and in that sense, we can sort of act as a shamash for other people. We can give them the light that they need. So what we will do is we will just kind of give people an opportunity to say where you're stuck and what would you like from people. And then we will all sort of give them some light. So Nancy.
Yeah, it's interesting how you asked this about what question would you have to move forward? And what's hitting me with it's not asking for help. It's
Mhm.
noticing that I'm stuck because I'm lazy. I have a fear of success or failure, and I have lack of motivation.
Mm.
And I have to say that's in every area of my life. So whether it's relationship, well, really not really with well, some, but with my exercise, with my music, with my jewelry making. And I get to a point that I'm afraid, I'm self-critical. So I get to a point of where I'm stuck, paralyzed, and my creativity won't go anymore because I'm afraid of either being successful or failing. So that's how I see this question rather than I
Mm.
wish I could find words to say I need help with this. It's really changing my mind and my being lazy and lack of motivation, I think.
Well, thank you, Nancy. We're listening with an open heart. And let's all like hold up our fingers. There are 8 candles in Hanukkah, so we can all just give Nancy some light. Let's just share some light with her. Nancy, may you find the kind of strength and courage and self-confidence to move forward with your creative endeavors. Who else is feeling stuck? I'd like to share. Yes, Elisa.
I think that sometimes I focus on the past too much and I don't pay full attention to what I'm doing in the present sometimes. And so I need to be more mindful.
All right, thank you. We're listening with an open heart. Let's all put up our candles. Send Elisa some light, and may you find the ability to stay present and not to focus on the past, and just to be where you are now and move yourself towards the future.
Thank you.
Okay, so Toby. Toby, you're on mute still.
There we go. I'm having some difficulty. I've acquired a lot of things during my life. And I'm trying to divest myself of a lot of those things because, frankly, I have a little tiny house and I'm kind of overwhelmed with things. So, and especially, particularly, I have a room upstairs that I really would like to clear out to make a gym out of. But it is so crammed full of stuff that when I open the door, I'm just overwhelmed. And I just close the door again and go, oh, sorry, can't do it. And I just feel frustrated And like I should be able to move forward, but I don't seem to be able to do that. So
Thank you. Thank you, Toby. You're listening with an open heart. So we're all going to hold up our candles and give you some light. And may you be able to become unstuck and maybe leave the door open a little bit longer and grab one or two things and get rid of that before you close the door again. And by taking those first small steps, you can then take the next step. Stephanie.
Hi. Well, I've been independent for most of my life, and it's very, very tough for me to ask for help. I almost feel like if I can't do something myself, then there's something that I'm not doing or lacking in something. But I have been having a goal of changing where I live, finding a better place to live. And I just didn't know how I was going to do it with the way rents are these days. I just didn't know how I could make my income, my part-time income work. And I really needed help, and I wasn't sure how to ask people. I also didn't want to feel vulnerable because it would mean I would have to kind of talk about what I had, what I had in savings and what I was making in my job. But I was able to somehow let go of that, and with a friend that I trust, I was able to talk about these things. And this friend really helped me in such a great way that it really gave me some hope that I could work out a plan to find maybe some senior housing and qualify for that. And so now I have sort of a direction, and I feel quite a lot of sort of, just like hopefulness, and to start the new year with a plan that maybe I can really make work for me.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. We're listening with an open heart, and we're all going to hold up our candles to give you some light. You may keep your momentum and keep reaching out to other people and your closest friends, and that you can find some housing that works for you in the new year.
Thank you.
Wendy.
Thank you. I'm kind of at the other end of things in the beginning since the grant went in today. So now I'm released. Thank you guys. And I can go back to whatever. So as you guys all know, if you've been here for 3 years or 2 years, that enthusiasm was always I loved it. But then I realized it could catch you sometimes. And I realized doing this grant that some of the things that I had done, I had to, Shabbat Shalom to you too. And so now I'm going to go back and I can reevaluate, but I don't really have a problem with just asking people how to do things or getting help. And this whole grant process taught me you have to ask for help, or you just can't get it done. So if you really want to reach your goal, then you just have to ask. And people are great; they want to help. So I'm happy.
Well, congratulations, Wendy, and we'll all send you some light and enjoy this great accomplishment with you, and be wishing you light in your path forward for what comes next.
Thank you.
Marianne, hello.
Hi. I have to leave at 7:30 because I have to work. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I've been asking for help to figure out. I'm just at heart. Well, I have OCD and I just worry like obsessively. So I've been asking for help with that because it affects my quality of life. And most of the stuff I worry about is nonsense. So uh, I was going to say my camera's off because I have like 20 minutes to eat dinner before I have to go to work. So
Well, we will all send you some light and some comfort that you may find support and strength to, mitigate the impacts of the OCD and the worry that's um, impacting your quality of life. Anybody else? Sarah.
Oh boy. I my question that I wrote was, how can I re-find my enthusiasm post-divorce in this new life that I have now? I used to be very enthusiastic and optimistic and hopeful, and it's just been very hard to regain my footing. It just has felt like so many changes, and I've had a hard time adjusting to being single.
Well, Sarah, we're listening with an open heart, and we'll all send you some light. May you regain your footing. May you adjust to being single and to life after your divorce, and may you regain your enthusiasm and move on positively to a new phase in your life. Anybody else? Okay, well, that was an experiment. I thought that was kind of fun. Did you guys like that? Is that good? Yeah, okay. Seems like some enthusiasm for that. All right, that was fun. Okay, so now we'll get back to our regularly scheduled way of, Mussar is a practice, and we can take these principles and use them in new ways and finding ways. I hope that this, sorry, I'm a little incoherent today, so I'll just leave it at that. I think you guys got the picture. So, we also talked about the light, and Hanukkah is a festival of light. We talked about providing light to one another, but there's also a divine spark in all of us, and it gets occluded by our baggage. And a lot of the things we shared, that was from the baggage, one way or another, external, internal things that come up. And maybe by boosting each other with some light, or when we look at our menorahs, if we light one, we can use that to connect to our own divine spark, and we can see our own internal light reflected in the beauty of the candles, and maybe the candles can help kindle a light within us. So anyone have any thoughts around that? Okay. So if we take this a little bit deeper, here's our spectrum of enthusiasm that we talked about last time, where if we have too little alacrity, it can be hard for us to kind of get going. And that's sort of where we were focusing our energy today. And then too much, it can be, lead to rashness or frantic busyness. Kind of I might have a volunteer to read the first bullet.
I'll read it.
Be.
A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. Proverbs 24.
Thank you. Okay, I will put this in the chat. So this is obviously from Proverbs. So what is the lesson it's trying to teach? We may agree, we may disagree, but let's start with just making sure we're all on the same page. Put that in the chat. So what is the message here? Yeah, Paul.
What comes to mind is that this kind of reminds me of watching one of those movies where, you have to be ready at any moment and you have to be on guard at all times. And it seemed like a really difficult way to live a life, to be always aware that a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding the hands to rest is what will lead you to poverty and scarcity. And it reminds me a bit like sort of the Protestant work ethic, which has always been troublesome as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, that's what it sounds like to me, and I'm happy to hear other perspectives on it. I'm sure there are, but that's what comes to me right now.
Similar with me as well. Always be on guard.
Yeah, it's a little extreme.
But when it was written, I suspect that people did have to be on guard all the time, so that it was probably very appropriate for certain communities of people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. It was a different time. Most people were agrarian. It was not, I read one estimate that it used to take like 4 hours a day to like grind like the barley stalks into flour. So just the basics of survival took a huge amount of work and effort to get through. Wendy.
Well, I think about taking the easy way out. Those are all things that are just so easy. And just kind of sitting back and relaxing and just taking the easy way out has consequences. Mm-hmm. And this particular verse is alluding to the fact that you will have poverty, but there's lots of different kinds of poverty. So it's like if you just kind of want to sit back and relax and don't say anything, like at a meeting or something, you won't be heard, your voice won't be heard, and things will not go your way, and you can face consequences for that. So that's what I think about that. I think everybody I know pretty much pitches in and works pretty hard all the time. I don't think anybody kind of, shirks their duties, but sometimes people don't have the confidence they need to speak out or go forward. And this can even give you that confidence, just this verse.
Thank you. I love that. That's sort of a positive interpretation, that maybe we can use this as just a reminder that, we can be empowered to take action, and that when we don't, it can make things a little bit harder. If we were to kind of write this in a way that was maybe a little bit less extreme, what might that look like? Because there is a certain blaming, almost shaming aspect to this, which makes me a bit uncomfortable, where it's like, if I decide I'm going to take a nap, does that mean I'm lazy? There's a certain thrust in the Mussar literature around this topic, which gets very sort of harsh about always be doing something productive. And that's, not really possible, nor is it fruitful to do that, because there's only, you know, I think studies have shown people only have like 3 or 4 good creative hours in the day. And then after that, we're just kind of, you know, spinning our wheels, right? Exactly. So where do we write this? What might it look like? Yeah, Sarah.
Well, it just seems to me like a real scarcity mentality. Like you have to work, work, work. And if you don't work, 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 you know, you're not a good person. I mean, I don't, I mean, I've always worked hard, but I've come to learn that, you know, balance is really important and fun. You know, I think that I could just spend the rest of my life having fun because I've done enough work and problems for my whole life. So now I could just like kick back and take lots of naps but you know, so I don't agree that you know, this is sort of like a philosophy that I don't necessarily believe. I mean, I think that, you know, balance is more important, and, you know, you need rejuvenation and rest. And it's not just about, you know, I mean, I've spent times in my life where I was just a human doing instead of a human being. And so,
Thank you, Sarah. So it looks like Carrie is sitting forward.
I was thinking balance also, whereas along the spectrum of this, if you have too much sleeping, you're going to miss out. If you have too little, you're going to miss, you know, you're going to kill yourself. And so there's a balance, you know, if you want to be alive and healthy and provide and whatever, you just have to learn how to balance all these little things out so that they work for you and not against you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Janos.
You know, I just want to add to this one, the way I see life. Most of us, we talk about balance, as if in a life there are two things. One is work, another one is living. Actually, very squarely, like life is not a light switch. So if you want to talk about balance, you need to open up a little bit more. There are different areas of life. There is a love life, there is a friend's life, there is a life with our children, there is a life with our spouse, and then a work life. So you need to, I rather call this attunement. You decide what's most important for you at this moment, and you attune yourself how life is opening. I just yesterday watched one guy. He said, well, happiness is equal reality minus our expectations how life should be. Because, well, we ignore the reality and we focus on our expectation, then we are unhappy. So, well, you made me unhappy. You know, so good to think about that way. So it's not a life balance, it's attunement to the complexity of life.
Love that. Thank you, Janos. Wendy.
Just on those points that you guys all just made, I'm thinking my favorite word is why. So every time I try to make a decision, that I stop, and actually I learned this in Mussar, stop. Don't just do anything till you stop and ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Why are you enthusiastic about this? So that I can examine my intention. And I mean, yeah, why you want to take a nap? Of course, if you're super tired, you should take a nap. But I'm talking about other things that you might get involved in. And, you know, yeah, you have to balance, like you just said. And that, I think that word why has been very helpful for me.
Thank you. And let's put this in conversation with another reading. So may I have a volunteer to read this next bullet, please?
I'll read.
Okay, thank you.
As a new therapist in training, I was puzzled about why I kept feeling remarkably sleepy during my sessions with one particular client. I was getting plenty of sleep and I didn't think I was bored. My supervisor taught me to recognize my fatigue and yawning as a sign of tension, not tiredness. Neurologically, our hindbrain stores physical memories and responds when we are under threat, be it a physical, mental, or integrity, or a memory. Not sure I get this.
Okay, so I will put it in the chat and then we'll sort of unpack it. That is not the chat. Okay, so I'm happy to take a crack at this, but does anyone have any idea sort of what she's talking about or what her main point is? Yeah, Bonnie.
So I know that when I get stressed, I also get very tired.
Mhm.
I've put a lot of energy. I'll just give you an example. I was presenting at a large 800-person conference last week with somebody I'd never presented before, who had literally run over me and the rabbi in our first meeting. And I put way too much time and effort into just thinking about how the event would go, to a point that when I got to do this seminar, I was really tight. I had to just stop and take a few breaths, many, and say, screw it. I'm going to do the best I can. And I let it go. But and I didn't realize how exhausted I was till after that seminar. And it was only an hour webinar, workshop. But for me, that's what happens.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. So, and I think that's a big part of this is there's a connection between, between stress, tension, fatigue, and sometimes these things look like one another and sometimes they cause one another as well. Yeah, it's like Carrie and then Janos.
As just a small thing, dogs yawn when they're stressed out. So it's might not just be humans that use the yawning reflex to relax or to reduce tension.
Yeah, and the hindbrain is like one of the most ancient parts of the brain. It probably goes all the way back to reptiles. So yeah, this is like a primitive response. Janos.
So we know that the traumas are sitting quite deeply in us and we have no control over them. Pretty much they control us. And there are these hidden, let's say, metaphorical buttons that either can push our buttons or a smell or sound, anything can trigger us. And will any psychological of this nature will initiate physical in us, mostly anxiety when we don't know what it is, or fear if you know what it is, or you want to run or fight. And then, so it's really coming from out of our control. And then that's how we respond to this. More actually, not respond, react, rather.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's thank you, Janos. And that's another layer, Karen McClintock, she was saying, I was meeting with a patient. This patient I was always yawning. I wasn't tired. So, if we tie in what Janos was saying, probably there was some kind of trauma button that was getting pushed and it was causing like this sort of physical reaction. And that's sort of why it's hard working with other people, because sometimes they're going to push our buttons. Whether you're a therapist or not, just some people push our buttons. And So we're going to use this to help us get into our breakout groups. And so with your partner, what I'd like you to discuss is how can you tell if fatigue is from stress or from just not getting enough rest? And does it matter? And what do you do when the fatigue starts to pile up? What are some ways that you can address this? So this is also, okay, so let me get the breakout rooms open. Okay, so there you go. Hey everybody, welcome back. So, what do we think? Does it matter where the fatigue is coming from, and how might we address it when we find ourselves in that position? Would anyone have any? Obviously, don't share more than you would like to share, but would love to hear how that went. Alyssa.
Well, too little sleep can place you under stress. And also from the example which you had given us earlier,
Yeah.
I think that how you conduct yourself when you are under stress can impact other people. And that the patient's perception of the therapist's behavior could be skewed or distorted or misinterpreted. And that when you are stressed, you have too little alacrity.
Yeah, absolutely. And a really good point that when we, these things impact other people, it's not just about us. Thank you. So we have Paul and then Wendy.
Yeah, I was thinking about how when I was over the last 6 months or so of being laid off and then trying to figure out what my life was going to be for a while, I ended up sleeping a lot, taking lots more naps than usual, and so I realized that it was depression. It was my way of dealing with some depression. So sort of being aware of that, it was didn't necessarily mean that I stopped doing it, just that I was aware that I needed to figure out some strategies for dealing with being depressed, and how do I get myself with being on the alacrity side of things, more alacritous, if you will. But there's been other times when I have been fatigue has been an issue. It was one time when I had the flu really badly, and after a week of just trying to sleep it off, because normally I could sleep it off and I'd get better, I realized it was just not going away. So I just had to push myself through the fatigue and just become active anyway. And that was the only way I was going to get myself out of it. So I guess it just is very context dependent, sort of how to address it.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. So that's sort of answering one of the questions from Paul's perspective. It does matter why you're fatigued. And if it's from, being sick or some depression or something else, understanding where it's coming from can help us figure out the appropriate response. Wendy.
My breakout room partner and I, we addressed the piling up of fatigue, and he came up with a really good plan. I like it. And the first thing was to examine yourself and your life and what you really want, and then kind of make a plan. And he mentioned, if you have too many hobbies, then you may get rid of some of those. But the thing that I really liked was when he suggested searching for accountability, so that when you make this plan, there's somebody that you can go to for accountability. I liked that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else care to share or comment? Okay, well, let's take a look at the, let's see. So our mantra and our some actions that we can take. So may I have a volunteer to read the mantra and then these ideas for actions?
I can read.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Mantra, make the most of each moment. Actions, get more sleep, conduct an enthusiasm inventory, track roadblocks to positive energy, just do it when it comes time to do a task and you feel heaviness set in, be grateful, stick with positive people, model enthusiasm for your kids.
Great, thank you. I'm going to put these in the chat. And I'd like you to think about, like, what action will you take this week based upon something we've talked about or something you've thought about. And as we head into, and I'm going to look for our chat. Okay. Here we go. So maybe just if you want to share something in the chat, something that you're going to be maybe focusing on over the next week, either from this list or from somewhere else, for your practice of alacrity. Okay, we're starting to see some responses here. Well, I am not as focused as I often am during these. I have a colonoscopy tomorrow and have not eaten all day. So I thought I would be fine, and I'm realizing I'm not quite as sharp as I sometimes am. But I think we've had a nice session anyway, so I thank you for all your patience. So let's, okay. All right, well, you guys all have shared your, or most of you have shared your focus for your practice. So let's all close our eyes once again. Taking a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth in a nice leisurely way. Let's focus on the light that's coming through our eyelids. It is the light of our divine spark. It's that light that we've shared with one another. When it comes time to do the action for your practice, just remember this light. Remember the light we shared with one another. And may it give us strength and inspiration to take that next step. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.